Hi, and welcome back to another episode of the History of Fan Anime. I'm your host, William Chow. In today's episode, it's a really first of a series of episodes. I'm going to try to attempt to do something that I've not done before, but I always had the idea of, and that is to do a review on some written work about anime. Okay, so people have been using anime to write essays, to write like theses and documents, and obviously homework assignments and that kind of stuff about anime. And so in this episode is going to be a start of a long chain of episodes because obviously to fully do an analysis on a written work, it may require me several episodes to go over different points and that kind of stuff. But um, this is one of these sort of rare situations I get to do this. So before I begin and talk about this, I want to remind people to go down below, click like and click subscribe. Again, any sort of comments and things that you would write down does help the YouTube algorithm. So at least hitting that like definitely does really help. So do please do that. Again, if you want to support me financially, I do have the super thanks button available, as well as the PayPal and Patreon links. Again, I've now added a little more content to the Patreon. So again, if people who are interested in my new ebook that's out, I've now added video versions of that available now. Again, so again, you can go to the Patreon, you can log in for free, and again, I've made it so that any of the paid accounts, has access to that first ebook for free, and the video version you get a massive discount on it as well. So in case you would like to get a video version of the ebook, okay, as well as the audiobook as well. So do check that out. Link is below. Okay, so as I said in this episode, I'm going to be going through and doing analysis on these written pieces of work. So people have obviously submitted either thesis documents or maybe their homework assignments or that's for some of the writing, creative writing, or in this case it's whatever studies that they happen to be doing. Okay, and it uses a lot of references to anime. And part of the reason why I made this this channel is to inform people and to record and document history, of this age of anime that we've had in North America. And a lot of people who are doing this kind of research and that kind of stuff are having problems finding actual sources and actual information in regards to this era of anime. Okay, and and I've seen it from people from Crunchyroll and people from various different magazines and that kind of stuff are all interviewing different people and are trying to find information about the origins of how anime got this way. So in today's episode, I've come across a piece of writing. Okay, it does have this sort of a political sort of type of leaning towards it. Okay, and again, I don't want to talk politics and that kind of stuff, and most people don't really get it, especially on this particular part of the channel, because my emphasis is on listen, again, documenting a time period in our history that that transpired and isn't well documented. Not very many people have written too many articles and that kind of stuff about it, and not too many people, especially from this particular era, have basically documented what exactly has gone on in this thing. And so what ends up happening is people tend to rely on things like Google and whatnot to write their essays and to get confirmation bias on their particular works. And this is particularly poor when Google does not show results for things that happened in the 1990s or the 1980s, right? They actually need some people, some interviews, and that kind of stuff to be made. And that's, primarily one of the main functions of my channel here is to provide this documentation, to show you pictures, to tell you stories and accounts, show you merchandise and things that came from that and how we came across it, getting this stuff, what this means, tie in things that happen in anime with things that are happening in real life. Okay, and that's what I'm trying to do with that. So again, this isn't a typical type of episode, and the way that I'm tackling this episode is maybe a little bit strange and very very long. Okay, but I assure you, even though we are touching a little bit on politics, do not pay attention to that too much because I won't delve too deeply into it. Okay, I'll touch on it, but I won't really get into why what particular things that happen on that, because there's a lot of factors and that kind of stuff, and that's not what this particular channel is really about to. But what I want to address, and which is the most important thing, is when people do research, okay, and they go and try to find information that supports their research, okay, and they use Google and that kind of stuff, this is confirmation bias. The fact that you're specifically looking for information and looking for essentially yes men, okay, people that will say yes to whatever you say, to basically confirm what you're writing. And of course, this is really poor scientific method, right? And since the topic is anime, I want to be this person that comes in and says, okay, using my own accounts, my own and whatever evidence and documentations and that kind of stuff, fan letters and newsletters, merchandise, art books, or whatever that happens to be, that I have available as a historic archive. I want to present it to you and tell my story in helping you understand and build this picture, the story. If you want to, kind of have a vision that's not just in front of you but around you, right? What are all the other factors that transcribe around you? So when I describe what the environment of, let's say, an anime convention in 1991, or some of the funny stories and conflicts and cosplay and that kind of stuff that happened at Comic-Con in '89. Okay, I want to not only tell you the story, I want to see if I can get you some pictures. I want to give you some context of why this is this particular thing happened. Was there any other things happening at the con that might have transpired? What about any sort of popular culture things that were also happening, or news stories that was happening at that particular time that has a significance of why this sort of thing occurred in anime? And this is what I want to present. Okay, this is the history part and the accounting part and of course the recording of and documentating of this kind of history, because as I said, um, we're all getting older, okay, and if we don't tell our story, if we don't get it, told in and documented, then we may become people like Carl Masick, Don Yee, Torrin Smith, all these people who are pivotal members of the anime community, but they're no longer around anymore, and they can't tell their story, and and all the things, whether or not good, bad, conflicts, their opinions on stuff, on how they handled things, and all the inside stories that we can't find on Google, and people didn't post on any sort of form, gets lost. Okay, that part of history is lost, and until someone comes through and documents it, maybe brings out some receipts and brings out some scripts and or things of basically historical importance, okay, like these anime artifacts, if you will, okay, um, you know their story will never be fully, as I said, fully appreciated and fully understood, and then it'll be just basically left for interpretation. And and one good example I just did a few episodes ago is the story of the most mysterious song on the internet. Okay, the mere fact that it is highly possible that most members of the band who wrote that song are no longer around. Even the producer that probably made that thing is probably, maybe, possibly no longer around. And um, with that, it may be very impossible to find out who exactly wrote that song and where it came from and that kind of stuff. And it may be just one of those untold, basically unsolved mysteries, right? And in this era, at this particular time, there should be no excuse for these untold mysteries or unsolved unresolved and unsolved anime things in history, because as I said, we are still very, very young. As I said, we have entered a year of 40 years of anime in North America here. We should be able to have and document our own history and be able to do that, because as I said, we're not that old yet. Not that old yet, so let's get that. Okay, so anyway, I apologize for such a long opening, but yes, so here we're going to begin. I'm going to break this up into smaller episodes, and I'm going to kind of spread them out so that it's more digestible, and people can think about and do the different things rather than one big, huge 5-hour, 6-hour long video. Okay, so I'll break it up for you. All right. So without further delay, let's begin.
I came across this article when I was basically doing some Google searching on my last episode, where I was going through some fan letters. And one of the names that came up on the list was Ken Amari. And I remember his name was very famous in the beginning of the anime, building of the industry and that kind of stuff. And then yes, I've realized that yes, he was the one who started the alt fan.Sailor Moon subbase of in the rec.arts.anime Usenet groups. Okay, so he basically built an entire group for the fans of Sailor Moon. Okay, and going down the list to see if I can get any contact information, just to give him the heads up that I'm using, just to sort of using his letter that he came up. I came across this article. This is an article written by an Ariel Petit out of Concordia University in Montreal. And the article basically has the title, Do female anime fans exist? And the impact of women exclusionary discourses on rec.arts.anime. And I thought, okay, that's kind of a really interesting thing, because obviously, if you're in the beginning of anime and that kind of stuff, the direction was primarily aimed at a male audience, and of course the female audience didn't sort of phase in until like 95 and that kind of stuff, when YTV and that kind of stuff brought like Sailor Moon in. And then of course the remainder of the question is the impact of women exclusionary discourses on rec.arts.anime. And I'm going, okay, Usenet groups and women, okay, that's kind of not really an oxymoron, but like it's are two things that don't normally go together. So, I took down and put this article down and started reading it through. And I'm going to go through this article and sort of the different things, because usually what happens, okay, and then this is also a relatively recent article, so this is from 2022. What usually happens in these sort of situations is that when people do research on topics of the past, for example, and they use nothing but like essentially Google resources and whatnot.
We all have susceptibility to bias. Search engines on the internet are the epitome of confirmation bias. And you're going to use that as evidence that you are correct? No. The good thing about science is that it's true whether or not you believe in it. What does it mean to be skeptical? What does it mean to be convinced by data? A proper skeptic questions what they're unsure of, but recognizes when valid evidence is presented to change their mind.
What ends up happening is that they pull examples and things from history and that kind of stuff without actually being a person that has gone through and lived the different experiences and that kind of stuff in that sort of realm. And what usually happens is that there's a problem of how the situational and how the environment surrounds the context in which you're trying to grab all these things. So basically trying to pull messages out of rec.arts.anime without actually, knowing the environment and the situation that goes on, right? And then you'll end up missing points and maybe misinterpreting what the particular position, or actually imposing different things into there when that wasn't the situation. So And that's usually what what's commonly happens when you do research like this, and you kind of lack that outside sort of view, right? Or that that familiarity that you have from being in that situation. So let's decide to go through this, and I'll put again I'll put the link down below for anyone who wants to actually go and read the entire article. But I'll go through and I'll pick out the points that need to be pulled out, and we'll talk about each individual point as I go through it. Okay, so we go on to the first page here, and we go to the first line of what we're going to discuss here, right here. While anime has definitely seen a shift in its audience in the last 20 years in favor of a younger and more racially and gender diverse fandom. Now, this is an interesting statement because the anime itself, since let's say, the 2000s, right, hasn't changed in any sort of way, to pander to us, right? Because as I said, in the last 20 years, you're looking at basically everything up to basically the anime crash of 2008, right? Anime was pretty much at its highest boom when, just before it hit there, 2004, 2008, very, very, boom sort of situation of anime in North America. All the different sorts of various different types of anime types were out there. Anime always generally in regular marketing is always aimed at a younger audience, right? So, for example, the people who were growing up with Gundam back in the 1980s, okay, in the year 2000, they're still marketing Gundam, but not the same Mobile Suit Gundam that was back in 1980. They're obviously, dashing it up, making it newer, making it into, essentially Gundam Seed, Exceed Destiny, things like that, right? Crossbone Gundam and, 000, right? So it's not that they're, tailoring the audience, to an older generation. They're always targeting the audience to the same generation, to the same age group, basically, your primary, and I've always commented on this, that, ever since the 80s, right, the focus on most of the animes are the 3Gs, right, girls, guns, and gore, and which, primarily deals with a male audience, usually, we're talking, elementary school, high school, college, early life sort of situation. That's where the highest sales and the highest sort of sort of marketability goes to. So they aim their marketing towards those. Once they get those guys into that kind of stuff, then they sell them all the stuff that normally would appeal to those people in that age group. Of course, normally would be things like, merchandise, school supplies, stationery, obviously things like, soundtracks, and then of course video games, right? Those are all things aimed at that particular market. It's not aimed for, older people, let's say plus 30, plus 40, to people. It never was. It was always aimed at the lower generation. Okay, now, to say more racially and more gender diverse fandom, well, that never happens in Japan, right? Japan isn't changing the type of anime that's being released because they're not selling it to us. They're not selling it to the West. They're not selling it to even the world, for that matter, right? Very, very rarely are they adjusting their anime for international sales. They're selling it because of Japanese themes, and that's why you'll get, a lot of traditional, themed Japanese shows. Genji, a lot of the samurai types, like Samurai Troopers or that kind of stuff, right? It has nothing to do with, what things are in other countries and that kind of stuff. It's highly focused on Japan. Pat labor could have been, somewhere else, but no, it has to be the Japanese Defense Force, and it is having to do with, the Japanese Defense Force, the Japanese police, right? Not aiming at anything else. We're not adding any sort of, racial exclusions and that kind of stuff. It's just, they're very, xenophobic people, and that's what they are. So to say this is very, very hopeful. I mean, sure, the fandom could be changing, and that's fine. That could apply anywhere in the world, really. But, to say that in a Western context, okay, sure, you can say that. But that's not the molding of the Japanese. Okay, that's just, a changing society that is now adapting to what anime is. Because you have to realize, that's what Japanese animation is. It's not making any sort of adjustments for our culture or our viewing, because we're not the target audience. Same thing with J-pop, J-dramas, Korean pop, Korean dramas, right? Like Chinese soap operas, for example, right? And even things like CCP propaganda, right? Those aren't aimed for us, okay? They're aimed for their population. We just happen to be able to get translations for their dramas and music and that kind of stuff, and that's why we were able to enjoy it as well. They're not catering towards us. It just happens to be that we are a fan of it, and whether or not you're whatever, gender diverse or whatever, and you happen to like it, well, great. That's just another sort of market that they weren't aiming for, but all of a sudden they got. Okay, so that's just a clarification on that particular point. Okay, this line here: anime is still synonymous with the far right ideologies of white and male supremacy, and events of anti-blackness, as well as sexism, are still frequently headlining papers on anime fandom in spaces in North America. Now, this is a pretty, blatant, blanket statement. Anime is still synonymous with the far right ideologies, and I've never thought that anime had any sort of, swinging a one way to any spectrum of right or left or whatever. I always thought that the anime is, is an entertainment platform designed to tell stories, and can tell stories of various different things away from the Western ideology, Western thought. Okay, bringing bringing the Asian elements and that kind of stuff in there. Bringing in things of history and things from like feudalism in Japan and that kind of stuff, and a different law system, right? So and a different point of view, especially towards things like hentai and stuff, right? Totally different thing. I've made several episodes where I've outlined things that the government doesn't want you to watch, but here shows up a lot of hentai and that kind of stuff. Again, check my links below for the episode guide where I cover those kind of episodes. So to say, white and male supremacy. I mean, think of all the Japanese animation that are out there, especially the really big ones, and are they really promoting white, supremacy and all? I mean, most of the characters are not even white. They're Japanese or they're of a different kind of color, right? I mean, Goku, is he white? No. Right? Naruto, is he white? No. Luffy from One Piece, no. He's Brazilian, by the way. You think of all these sort of big animes like that. They're not promoting that. Sure, they might not have other things of color and that kind of stuff. This is one episode I never really bothered really covering, but did they really have to make Mr. Popo, dark? Just a color variation? Sure, okay, whatever. Is that to say that they can't have female characters with green hair? Does that represent the movement? No. I've this whole entire concept of anti-blackness. I mean, part of the reason why people they don't draw cells and that kind of stuff in the darker colors is because it's hard to put facial expressions and that kind of stuff on them when that is all blacked in, right? Because then all you see is only contrasting colors, right? So line art, for example, for the mouth and that kind of stuff it's impossible to see. It's just a massive black head essentially, right? Or a dark head. it's really hard to see that in contrast to backgrounds. So that's why a lot of things like cells don't work out that well. That's a technical reason why you don't want to do it that way. But if I had to comment on a bunch of animes and that kind of stuff, when this situation occurs, I'd have to say things like SPT Laser Episode 1 on the American base. The Chip's friend was black, and unfortunately, this is one of the episodes where the enemy attacked the base, and he didn't make it. Okay, now that was that considered anti-blackness? I mean, that's just a character plot. That's just reading into something, right? Same thing with let's see, Double Zeta Gundam episode 31, Blue Troop. Okay, this is when the Agama ends up going into Africa. Okay, and they have to fight the elite force, the Dagwan force from New Africa, right? And well, oh my God, the Double Zeta Gundam had to defeat that guy, and the leader is so is that considered anti-blackness? Like, geez, I mean, just because they they don't have certain characters and that kind of stuff in animes and that kind of stuff, they have some in ones, and for example, the middle guy in Dragonar, he's one of the main characters that goes all the way throughout the show. So, Cowboy Bebop, you can probably say that too, right? So to say that it's that is and to come up with examples where that is done for something that's not culturally ours, that's not one of the requirements that they have over in Japan. So why are you making that stipulation that it is, and because it isn't, put that label on it, right? It's just kind of ridiculous. And and then the last comment, dealing with the marketability of that. It's kind of strange when you basically, as a company who's making anime and whatnot, you have to be very cognitive of who your target audience is and what they want. And if they want to sell, if they want, their sales to, not tank, for example, okay, then you have to release stuff that people want to watch, okay, and if you start putting stuff that is one particular type of agenda, make it woke or whatever, and it is not something that people will want, then people will not buy it. They will lose money on it. Take, for example, Budweiser or Target or Disney by taking initiatives in a particular direction, and obviously that doesn't make the fans happy, and then when the fans aren't happy, they're not going to buy your product. Okay, and that's one thing that they got clear. Keep the politics and the stuff out of the products, and sell what you're supposed to sell. And it's all about making the money. And I said, ever since 2008, the budgets got really tight. The industry got really, the financial the distress took a toll on the entire industry. Okay, so they can't fool around with things that don't work. They can't experiment. Okay, with will this work or will it not work, or we have a secondary agenda. No. They are have these committees, and they have these sort of people that will do all the funding and all the merchandising and all the associated aftermarket type of marketing and sales. It is their job to make sure that this product that they put out makes money and generates income, and so they can all get their bonuses and that kind of stuff, because it's all about the money. Okay, it's not about political agenda, left or right or whatever it happens to be. It's something that will make money. Now, when that stuff leaves Japan and comes over here in North America, and all of a sudden you want to put some sort of agenda on it, or that sort of interpretation or whatever. Well, that's fine. That's what it actually says there. So frequents the headlines in anime fandom in North America. So if someone wants to write some crap about why why someone what happened in episode 1 of SPT Laser, okay, sure, that's great. That's here in North America. You post it on whatever board you want to, continue repeating, the same sort of weird off narrative. That doesn't affect what happens in Japan, because with this anime that they release in Japan, they don't care about us, right? It's not about us, okay? And to say and to think it is about us, that's where the problem begins. And again, I want to stress that this. I don't want to get politically into this. I just want to make some references and just to show that there is this thing in there. Because again, I agree. I agree that the politics should be left out of the anime. Okay, just tell me tell me the good story. Give me some good animation, and then there you go. You got me. All right. Leave all the other crap out of there. And as I said, for the most part, I'd say Japan has got it 100% right. They're worried about generating money, generating profit, and getting their bonuses. Right, that is their job. That is what they're supposed to do. They're doing a service to the fans. They know where their money, where their paychecks are coming from. They're coming from the fans. And if you don't deliver a product that the fans want, then you're not getting paid. Okay, that's the true reality of it. It is not, I have a secret agenda that I want to push onto the fans, and you're gonna take it, whether you like it or not. This is what I'm gonna feed you, and and if the fans don't agree, then you're just not gonna get paid, because the fans are not. The ultimate decision, the ultimate thing that you can say is simply this. I can. I'm going to speak with my wallet. Okay, I'm going to cast my vote using my wallet. And if you want to put that product out, those laser discs or DVDs or manga or whatever you want to put out there, and I don't like it, I am not going to spend my hard-earned money on it. And in turn, you're not going to get any money or profit from that. And that's my ultimate way of speaking out for that. And again, I think the Japanese people really understand this. Okay, we continue. I argue in this paper that the tie-in of anime fandom and the far right politics in America cannot be disassociated from the anime fan identity discourse as it relates to gender issues, as it subsequently informed and composed of technocultures and identity of the online agents. So what you're trying to say is that there's some relationship between the anime fandom, the far right, and the online anime community in regards to how gender issues and that kind of stuff. Those cannot be separated. They must be all in one. So anime fandom, far rightness, the online community. And their views on gender issues all are one big thing that can't be separated. That's a pretty bold statement to say by basically it's essentially taking a very small sliver of the population and applying it to the larger population, saying that must be the case. That's what it basically breaks down to.
My body count is 500. My body count is 500. 500. 500.
Yeah, this is basically, taking, let's say, a page out of the Me Too movement, for example, right? Saying that, yeah, okay, sure, there are 100% there are bad people out there. Okay, but then the error would be to then say, well, because this subset is true, then that must mean it applies to the entire subset, right? It's saying that, well, all men must be like Henry Weinstein, and thus, therefore, all men behave this way. So, therefore, when choosing between, being trapped in the forest between a man and a bear, then everyone's going to have to pick the bear, because we think all men are Henry Weinstein. Okay? So, that is the huge fallacy in this, and but we'll go through it and we'll see where the points come from.
Thank you for sticking along and basically staying with it for this long. I really appreciate that. I said again, this is not typical content that I like, that I like to to do, and but I think it's very interesting. Not so much for the the topic or whatever of the particular essay here, okay? Because I don't that's probably that's politics and that kind of stuff is something I don't want to get into on this particular channel. But again, the importance of is correctly documenting events that happened in the past, especially in this very important golden era part of anime, and making and setting the record straight. You can make your own interpretations, and as when I remember when I took when I was on jury duty, okay, someone made a very prolific statement, okay, which really shaped the way how I think and interpret things. And this is what he said. You can choose to not believe, partially believe, total believe, none, some, or all of the evidence. Okay? So think about that. You can either, and this is it, there's, you've provided 6 different possibilities for one particular type of outcome. So if someone presents you a piece of information, you can choose to 0% believe none of it, okay? Like you have no confidence in it. You can have some belief or some particular confidence of some level, or you can be totally invested in believing this thing, okay? But also, you can also choose to believe none of the evidence. So, if multiple pieces or one piece of evidence that has different facets of it, you can choose to believe none of that. Maybe some parts of the evidence you deem credible and you will believe some parts of that. Or you trust the evidence, okay, so you fully believe that this evidence is 100% all parts of the evidence, so all the evidence as a whole, and you can choose to believe none of it, some of it, or all of it. And you can choose what level you believe it to, whether or not you just decide to 100% with or 0% confidence in any parts of that, partial confidence in 0 to all of it, or 100% confidence in none or all of it. Okay? Seems kind of confusing, but at the same time, it really resonated with me about how you would learn to interpret things and take the parts that you want to, that you feel credible, okay, and then you can analyze that using critical thinking to determine whether or not you wish to add this to your base of knowledge or disregard it as just total fluff. Or maybe something in the middle, partially you agree with certain parts, you don't agree with certain parts, you feel fuzzy about certain parts, but you're confident that the evidence is actually true, but you're not really sure. Well, that's so it handles all the different gray zones, both positively on that. So again,
the goal here is to train your mind how to see the world differently, how to question what others say. I've come to realize that there are 3 categories of truth: personal truth, political truths, and the objective truths that shape our understanding of the universe. The interesting thing about an objective truth is that it's true no matter what. Imagine that.
That's just something one story I like to reflect on. But again, we have more episodes of this. This is a fairly long essay, but as I said, I'll split up the episodes and have more of that again. So thank you for staying on this long. But again, don't be turned off by the fact of the topic that this is about. Because I'm not going to try to cover the politics and that kind of stuff a little bit. I'll touch on it a little bit just because I have to. But for the most part, I want to stick to the history. All right. So thank you again, and I will see you in the next episode. So until next time, I will see you again.